Just give me the level up! Ha! Give me that level up! You know you wanna. Just give me the level up! For fuck's sake! Give me that level up! Come on! Let's go! I finally did it! Oh my god, there it is, dude. Holy fuck. Oh my god. Ah, that took only 10 hours, 12 minutes. Oh fuck. Alright, so 2 days ago or so, I finally completed the challenge to get to level 100 on hardcore mode, and I did it on my sorcerer build. So this is the second character that I rolled, the first one being a rogue that's now in the Hall of Heroes, sadly. This is the only character that I lost, though. I only lost one character, and then I re-rolled sorcerer. So hardcore actually went pretty well for me, honestly, all things considered. And that's because I built extremely tanky. I built the most tanky sorcerer build I think I've ever seen. It was really low damage, sadly, but honestly, you don't really need a lot of damage when you're doing a damage over time based build anyways. And I know I did a video a couple days ago or like a week ago going over my level 80 progress and how the build was then, so I figured I'd do a little update now that I've hit level 100. I have no idea if I made it onto the top 1000 though, because like only a couple hours after I tweeted out that I hit level 100, they released the that they already had all 1000 names. So I don't know if I made it in like last second or not, but I guess we'll find out, huh? But anyways, let's go over the build now that it's been a little while. As you can see, this time I have all ancestral gear now. Everything's maxed out. I tried min-maxing as much as I could, but some things just weren't dropping for me that I needed. But either way, this is the finished build. So let's start with the legendary aspects. So, for the helmet we're using this one, honestly, I forgot to even change the legendary aspect. You should not be using the flame shield one. It's not a bad one though, because it basically lets you get out of danger if you're like in a bad situation. You pop flame shield, you move through enemies. It's not bad. But there was another one that I'm supposed to have on here. I totally forgot to put back on. Anyways, and then for the chest, I managed to find a raiment of the infinite, which was massive for the build. You can do this build without a raiment, but this is just super helpful. Highly recommend getting this and putting this in the build if you have one. You lose a lot of damage reduction because you have to use this unique and you can't reroll the passives or the stats on it, but it gives you a lot more damage, which is nice. And the teleport, pulling enemies close to you and stunning them, is very useful, especially since you benefit from damage to crowd control, damage to stunned, which this has both damage to close, damage to stunned. And with the build, we're already doing a lot of damage to close enemies. In fact, I think if we look at my stats right now, let's find damage to close. We have 91%, so this just makes it even better. Because Firewall is a sorcerer spell, but the way you play Firewall is you want to be as close to the enemies as possible. You're basically a melee build without being too melee. Like you're probably never going to get hit by more than like one mob, if that. Especially with this chest piece, since you just stun them whenever you teleport in. And it basically lets you do this really awesome burst combo where you teleport, then you Frost Nova, then you Inferno, or you can do Inferno first if you want to re-pull enemies closer again. But thankfully with teleport, you now have a way to pull in enemies without using Inferno first, which then lets you benefit from the snapshot damage of the vulnerable proc. So you play vulnerable with Frost Nova, then you pop Inferno to increase the damage of Inferno. and then you start spamming your firewalls, and you're just getting ridiculous amounts of damage out. On bosses, I was getting anywhere between like 100,000 to 300,000 damage ticks, depending on if all the debuffs are on them, like if they're fully staggered or if they at least just have vulnerable. And then for the gloves aspect, we're going for exploiters, which is the increased crowd control duration. And then when enemies are unstoppable, you do more damage to them. Ideally, you want to get that max rolled. I only had 35. It's not the most important thing ever, but there are modifiers to Nightmare Dungeons that make enemies unstoppable below 30% health, I believe. And that's where this comes in real handy if you're doing Nightmare Dungeon grinding. And then, of course, you want to use the disobedience aspect for either your pants or your chest. Since our chest is taken, we had to put it on pants. I managed to max roll it, which is awesome, 50%. The crazy thing about Firewall build is that we stack this aspect like crazy, like no other build does. Because I believe burning damage ticks twice a second, so you're just constantly ticking damage, and that's stacking up armor. And then if enemies are spawning in and you already have fire all over the place, and they're spawning into the fire, taking damage before they even have a chance to attack. And then you're just always having the full buff effect, pretty much. You never really have to worry about it falling off, because you'll just build it right back up. And then for the boots, normally you'd use different boots. You probably want to look for boots with like plus Frost Nova, plus teleport, because Frost Nova's cooldown is based on its level. So if you get it high enough, you can reduce the cooldown pretty huge. But I found Penitent Greaves to be pretty nice. Not only because it has movement speed and crowd control duration, but also its unique effect, leaving a trail of frost that chills, and you deal more damage to chilled enemies. So since we're a close range build, we're always moving around, right? And part of the gameplay of this build is dragging enemies through our firewalls. So we're kind of like double dipping in the effects here. So enemies behind us will be left in a cold trail, and then they'll also be running through our fire. So they're constantly being chilled and burned. And it's a cool like double wombo combo effect, I think. In fact, let me see if I can go out here and show you what I mean. Some enemies. I always get this lag when I enter a new zone. You see the frost effect going on? It's pretty large, right? As enemies walk into it, they start getting slowed and chilled. Then we can also place down our fire. Now they're burning while in the trail of chill, taking 10% more damage from the fire as well. So I'll go from 4,000 damage up to 5,000 damage, usually. Somewhere around there. It's pretty nice. Highly recommend trying it out if you don't really need a boot slot for anything. It also just looks really cool, right? I love this Trail of Frost. But anyways, onto the amulet. So these aspects can be moved around a little bit depending on what you're looking for or depending on what you have available. But you want Control, Conceited, and Storm Swell on your weapons and amulet. I prefer having Control on the amulet because I think we benefit from this the most. You deal up to 53% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies, which makes the raiment even more powerful because we're stunning them at the beginning of the combo, thus snapshotting for the increased damage from this while they're stunned. And then our fire also has a chance to immobilize, which is nice. So I think this is the biggest bonus that you want to get. But then with the weapon, I have Conceited, which is deal more damage while you have an active barrier. And then this one, which is deal more damage to vulnerable enemies while you have an active barrier. So, you know, both of these will always be up, and enemies will always be vulnerable in our main combo because of Frost Nova's modifier. And then for the rings, you want to have Smiting for sure. Increased crowd control duration is massive, and we're pretty much always healthy because we built a fuck ton of life. And there's a certain skill on the skill tree that I'll show you later, a passive skill that heals us when enemies are burning near us. Then, of course, for the next ring, you want to have the cooldown restores mana. I couldn't find a higher one. I think I found one with 18. I forgot to put it on. But if you can find one with 25, your build is going to be just destroying everything. You'll never run out of mana. It'll be really nice. So, those are all the aspects. Pretty much the same as last time, but we have the Raiment and the Penitent Greaves going. Probably only want to run one of these, but I'm crazy and I wanted to run both because I like the idea of the build effects that they enable. Now let's go over stats real quick. Stats on items. So for helmet, you want to get maximum life. I managed to get a max roll on that, which is massive. You want to get cooldown reduction for sure. Then you could get CC duration or just total armor, which is what I have. Mostly want that life, cooldown reduction, and then like some kind of like defensive skill on it, right? Chest piece, you normally would want to also just stack damage reduction, kind of like my pants, which has damage reduction from close, damage reduction from enemies that are burning, which they're always burning with Firewall. Then I have percent total armor, and I have +4 ranks of Firewall. That's probably the most important one. Get your mastery skills on your pants as high as you can. You want to be looking for a +4. Now, this can be a little confusing because normally this starts out with only 2 Firewall. But as you upgrade it, it hits certain like gear thresholds with the item power, and that will increase the amount that you get from your modifiers on your gear. So +2 goes up to +3, and +3 goes up to 4, right? Actually, I think it just goes from 2 to 4, but regardless, you want to get +2 Firewall, then upgrade it, and it'll be +4, which is awesome. So yeah, build your chest similar to your pants to stack a lot of damage reduction. You want close damage reduction, burning damage reduction, or just damage reduction, and armor. And whenever you can find life, get life. Life is very important. Now, the gloves are a little strange because normally people build this build with Meteor Lucky Hit proccing. I'm doing an alternate variant that I thought would be better because we're doing hardcore, where instead of using Meteor and using the enchantment for Meteor, I'm using Flame Shield enchantment, which I'm glad I did because I actually procced it 1 or 2 times when I was leveling from 80 to 100. So if I didn't have this, my character would be dead. Some people say this thing's cheating. I mean, you can get into all crazy conversations about like what's fair, what's unfair in hardcore, but at the end of the day, this is in the game. They put it in the game. They want you to use it. They want you to use the Flame Shield enchantment. They want you to use the potions. It's all in the game. You might as well make use of it, especially if you don't need the second enchantment slot for anything. Which we don't really. We just need the Firewall enchantment. Now, I'm very unlucky. I never found an amulet with mastery skill on it. So normally you would want to find an amulet with plus, I think, 3, up to 3 to Firewall or to mastery skills. And then you could find with defensive skills as well. I didn't really need the defensive skills because we're using some of the points that we would have put into Meteor, and we're putting that into Ice Armor instead. But if you don't have Ice Armor, you can get it from your amulet. And then you want cooldown reduction, crowd control duration, and whatever else that you want if you don't have all the slots filled. For mine, I have +3 ranks to Inner Flames passive, which is not ideal, but we have the crowd control duration, we have the cooldown reduction, might as well use it. Now, my rings are probably my best pieces of gear, especially this one, which took me like 20 million gold to reroll the crit strike damage on it, but I finally got it. So we got a max roll, life roll, we got a near max damage to crowd controlled enemies, which is stun, freeze, chill, immobilize, all these other things, effects and whatnot. And then vulnerable damage, crit strike damage. So ideally you want max life, vuln damage, crit damage, and then whatever else you want, like damage to burning, damage to CC'd enemies, damage to close. Any of those will do. And as you can see on this ring, I also tried to get a vuln damage roll on it. Never managed to get it, but we did get a max roll damage to close enemies, which is just as good. Low rolled the life, sadly, but we got pretty nice damage over time and pretty nice crit strike damage on it. But ideally, yeah, you want to copy this ring. This is like perfect, pretty much. This is so good. Especially since they rolled over 800 on both of them. I think this ring is probably like the most expensive piece of gear on my entire set, probably. I don't know like how much people are trading things for, but I want to post this in the Discord and see if anyone makes any cool offers. And then near the end of the run, I actually managed to pick up a weapon upgrade. I was using a wand, but wands have an implicit, which is the third stat from the top, so under damage per second, attack speed. This one has plus 30% damage to close enemies, whereas wands will have lucky hit. And I don't need lucky hit because I'm not a meteor proccing build. So thank God I picked this up because this is just way more damage. It's just 30% more damage on that. And then we managed to get a decent int roll, decent crit strike damage, actually really high, and damage to crowd controlled. Reroll one of the stats to vuln damage, and you got a perfect weapon. I don't think it's get much better than that, to be honest. So look for something with this stats. If you're not doing the lucky hit meteor proc combo, don't bother with a wand. Get a dagger like this. And then the focus, you want CDR, CC duration, damage reduction from burning, and intelligence, ideally. I rolled all stats, but it's good enough. Also, I never finished talking about the gloves, I just remembered. Since we're not doing lucky hit meteor things, we don't really need the lucky hit chance. But what you could do is you could find gloves with the lucky hit up to 5% chance to restore resource, which is really good. And then you get lucky hit on that, so that you're proccing that more often. That's pretty good. You want to get as much attack speed as possible, because it lets you spam more firewalls faster. And then obviously have damage over time, but you can get pretty much any other stat there. I think these gloves are pretty damn good, though. Very unexpected find. I ended up not upgrading my pants or my gloves for a long time. They're still like 757, 7069. Didn't even get them close to 800. So that's all for the stats of the build. Now, I kind of want to go over the skills real quick. I think I already did this in the last video, but just in case anyone missed it, I'll do a really quick overview. Put 2 points into this because you're not going to use it. Put 1 point here because you don't need any of this. And then 3 points into this because it's just more resistance. I mean, resistance is useless, so you don't really need this, but I mean, you're not really using anything else here, so we don't use core skills, so just put it there. And then we have this from the chest piece. Normally you don't go glass cannon. We're hardcore. Don't worry about glass cannon unless you feel like you're already really tanky. You can grab it if you want. It's a bit more damage. It's kind of nice. You want to get teleport. You want to get flame shield. You want to get frost nova. Max the fuck out of frost nova. It's our strongest ability. Pretty much every sorcerer build will be using this. You want to grab enhanced and you want to grab mystical because vulnerable is OP and this is the best way to get it. Flame shield, movement speed, and healing. You don't need to spec into these if you don't want to, but I like it. As I said earlier, you could just like not run any of these defensive skills, and then just get like +1 on your amulet, and then you'll have all of them. But I don't have an amulet like that, so we're doing this instead. Ice armor actually became one of my favorite abilities, surprisingly. The this effect down here. Enemies that hit you while ice armor is active have a 50% chance to become frozen for 6 seconds, which is scaled up from our CC duration. This is awesome. It's especially awesome because it actually seems to proc more than it says. It says 50% chance, but it's like every other enemy gets frozen by it. And it's explicitly useful against ranged enemies. Because ranged enemies will also get frozen if they hit you from ranged. So I was having a big issue with having a lot of damage to close enemies and damage reduction from close enemies, but I didn't have any damage reduction from ranged. And so ranged enemies were just hitting me so hard. But with this, they could only hit me 1 time if they got frozen. So you just see like ranged enemies frozen all over the place when I have ice armor up. Very, very useful defensive skill. Highly recommend going into ice armor if you can and picking that up. It's a lot more useful than it looks. And then, of course, you want to get these two cooldown reduction and then damage reduction from teleporting. That makes the wombo combo even better. Let's see if I can find a big pack of mobs to showcase this real quick. This will do. So, we just teleport in, everything's pulled to us, we frost nova, we press this, and then we start spamming. Everything dies, easy peasy. That is the main combo. It's very fast. We are damaged over time, but it doesn't feel like it with that burst combo. See how normally slow things die? It takes a little while, right? But you can just like basically lead them into your fire trail and then your cold trail. And then they start dying over time. But with this new combo setup, it's insane. It's so good. But anyways, back to the skills real quick. How did that? Oh, I accidentally spec'd out of it, didn't I? So yeah, max out Frost Nova. Grab each of these if you don't have the amulet thing. I kind of recommend just grabbing them anyways, though, so you can get the passives. Grab all 3 of your damage reduction nodes here. All very useful. Every Sorc build should use these, pretty much. Grab Icy Veil if you have points, because more duration on barriers is better for tankiness. And then grab these 2 bottom nodes for fire. We have the +3 from our amulet, which makes us deal 18% increased damage while we were healthy with pyromancy skills, which would be Inferno and Firewall. Well, and Flame Shield, but you know. Max out Firewall. Grab Enhanced Firewall. Grab Mage's Firewall, which I explained in the last video. And then Inferno, get everything. Then get all 3 of these bottom nodes. And then we're going Combustion. You might be able to do other things here if you're smart, but I don't know. Combustion is just more damage. So, you know. In fact, I think I remember some people using Shatter in case you're having trouble killing like a lot of enemies, because we do freeze with Frost Nova, and then when you kill them, they have a chance to explode. So it could be useful for that, but Combustion is just way more damage. Alright. And then lastly, let's quickly go over the Paragon tree, because not much has changed here since last time. I don't think I had this tree last time. So this is the tree that has the Searing Heat legendary node, but we don't cast Fireball or Meteor, and we don't benefit from Crit Strike chance, so you don't want to grab that. So ideally, from whichever node you're coming from, which I'm coming from over here, you want to be as close to the glyph socket as possible, because that's all we care about. I put Control in here, which gives us almost 100% more damage, crowd-controlled enemies. And then look at that glyph effect. You deal 10% increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies. So we're benefiting from the boots even further. And then 20% to stunned or frozen, which we also stun and we freeze. So very, very big damage increase from this thing. Highly recommend getting this. And then I kind of just go down here, grab Combustion, grab Keeper Flames. Pretty much anything with fire damage, burning damage, damage reduction from burning, anything like that you want to grab on the trees. So we have Tactician in this glyph socket on the Frigid Fate board. And then grab Burning Instinct whenever you have crit strike damage on your gear. I've seen some people scale this up to like 300%. And if you have an elixir, there's one elixir that gives you crit strike damage. If you use that, you get up to 300%. So that's a really big damage increase elixir as well. We have Exploit in this one. And we have Reinforce in this one. And then in the beginning one, I have Adept. So pretty much want to go with this setup. You can do these trees however you want. I honestly didn't follow like a guide perfectly to the T about like everything here. I just kind of went with wherever the hell I wanted that I think looked good. I think I got all the nodes that I wanted. You want to get all your glyphs up to level 15 from Nightmare Dungeons because it increases the radius, letting you stack the bonuses more and reach some of the rare nodes if you have things like this, which is bonus to all rare nodes within range. Sometimes you'll have glyph socket nodes where the rare nodes are slightly out of range, but if you upgrade it to 15, they will be in range. So just by the way, if you're curious about that, that's why that's happening. I was actually planning on testing out Icefall because of these. Is it Icefall? Yeah, I was going to test out Icefall board because we do have the chill boots, and there's a lot of damage to chilled enemies, chill application, damage reduction from chilled enemies. A lot of nodes here that would work really nicely with the boots. I ended up not using it because I think the Searing Heat board has some better stuff that we want. But, you know, I might test it out in the future. You could test it out yourselves if you want. Just keep that in mind. There's other boards that you can do that might be even better. Another one you could think of is Static Surge, because we stun, bring everything close to us, and then we would restore mana off that, which is pretty nice as well. But, you know, it's not very necessary. Now, one thing that makes me different from the Meteor proccing build is that we don't pick up this legendary node. This legendary node actually does nothing for us. I mean, it will increase this from 5% to 6% chance to spawn 2 firewalls, so 1% more chance. It's okay, I guess. Not really necessary. It'll make this proc every 100 seconds instead of every 120 seconds. It's pretty much useless. I don't recommend going Enchantment Master unless you're running 2 really good enchantments. If you're going Flame Shield, don't worry about it. You don't really need it. It's not that big of a damage loss or anything. So, you don't really care about the legendary node here. We just care about the glyph socket. I probably should have turned this the other way around, but I kind of just stuck with it. I initially thought I was going to want that, but I didn't. So yeah, that's it for the Paragon board. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to go over for the build. I think that's pretty much it though, guys. So yeah, had a lot of fun with the build. It did get to become kind of a slog once you got past level 80, but I think that's how it's going to be with most builds in this game. I think Blizzard really needs to increase the Nightmare Dungeon XP gain, because playing hardcore past a certain point just becomes kind of painful. You're stressing about dying all the time. You're just spamming the same 2 dungeons over and over and over again, because there's no like XP difference between Nightmare Dungeons and normal dungeons, or at least not a significant one. It's not really worth the risk of losing your characters in a Nightmare Dungeon if you could just run normal dungeons. So, you know. But ultimately, just do whatever you have the most fun with. For anyone curious, though, what I was doing for leveling is I was running Blind Burrows, and then I was pathing down to Ruins of Eridu and just going back and forth between these two because they're relatively close. I timed the log out duration and compared it to the run, and the run is pretty much the same exact time as it would take to log out, log back in, wait for the loading screens. So it's not really that much time loss at all. Plus you can kill like rare mobs along the way and stuff. I also found a couple other dungeons that were very good if you're feeling like taking on a risk, because they're kind of scary, they're kind of rippy. Ironhold's really good because there's multiple rooms where there's just like 10 elites packed in there. So if you can kill them really quickly and you're not worried about getting CC locked by freeze, you can do Ironhold, teleport in, group them up, burn them down as fast as possible. Same thing with this dungeon up here, which I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. Mercy's Reach also has the same kind of thing. What you could do is you could go in the dungeon, clear the first objective. Second objective is like pick up 2 board stones or whatever to unlock the door. If you go down each of those paths, there's also like 10 elites packed into those rooms. So you just kill the elites in each of the rooms, then you leave and reset. Don't worry about doing the boss. It's too much of a hassle, but you just want those elites. Then obviously Champion's Demise, which you'll see like everyone run. Awesome for group play. Still decent for solo if you can kill fast enough. I was getting like 8% XP from this dungeon, which is like 3% more than everything else was giving me. Problem is, it takes a little while to do, and for some reason my game kept crashing whenever I tried to enter. Maybe because too many people were doing it. I have no idea. But, you know, that's pretty much all that I have for you guys. If you do try the build, just know that this build is not a high damage build, but it is enough damage to get you through content. But it will be probably the tankiest build you've ever played, which I think is more important in the hardcore anyways. You want to build your defenses first before you get your damage, because if you die before you get to the point where, you know, it just won't matter. You know, if you have enough damage and you're dead, it doesn't matter. So highly recommend trying this out if you're dying a lot in the game. I know some people are coming to my chat saying like, oh, I've died like 10 times, I keep doing this over and over again. I'm like, maybe you should try something new, you know? Try to play the game a bit differently, experiment around with different abilities and stuff. And yeah, good luck out there. Have a good one. Hope you're all enjoying Diablo 4, and I'll see y'all next time.